our processes and policies really actually encourage a very linear process where one reviewer finishes it, it goes to the next one, and it goes to the next one. Well, we're trying to hack that process a little bit. So we are working through our evaluation plans that spell out how the procurement's going to be conducted and getting buy-in on a procurement-by-procurement basis, where we're now showing that actually in-person consensus team-based reviews are making a difference in our timeline. And that's not rocket science, right? But it's a different way of doing business. And it means that you have to get buy-in from all of those stakeholders, right? Legal has to agree to be at the table with you. And your policy, right, folks have to agree to in-process reviews instead of reviewing the entire package after it's done, right? But we're finding it's becoming meaningful at the outcomes, both from a time perspective, but also a quality perspective, right? Our documentation is improving when we do this. It's more consistent when we do it. It's less, it's more error-free when we do this. So we actually are working on trying to change our policy around that. Yeah.
The Hill boot camp that you mentioned, will DHS be open to accepting attendees from other agencies?
It's a great question, and I'll do this. Let us give it a try, and then we'll work with the AIA Council and see what we can do. Is that fair? Okay. I can't overcommit us yet, and we want to dry run it a few times in-house. But I think that what we're doing here is definitely relevant, and one of our goals, obviously, is to make sure that we're sharing what we're doing with our fellow agency counterparts and vice versa.
Hi, Polly. So, two questions. One, with 21 requirements coming to the Pill within the next few months, what are your resources within the Pill to even manage that? And then two, does the Pill assist with industry engagement ahead of time? I know that you spoke about, you know, from the requirement to award, but the pulling together all of the requirement piece, does the Pill help with that?
Great question. The answer is, I guess first, you had two questions. One is, we have been ramping up our Pill staff. It started out, as everybody knows, with Eric flying solo for a while, and then we had details from our acquisition professional career program. I hope I said that acronym right. I'm a graduate myself. Come through and support. I came on board a year ago. We've since actually added 3 staff, and we also maintain our detailees coming from the APCP program, which is a great opportunity for our junior acquisition professionals coming in, getting a flavor of what we're doing, learning those techniques and best practices, and bringing them back to the components that they support. So it's a great model. So we are small but mighty, and you know, the fact is that we're not doing the procurements, we're supporting the teams. And as long as we let that CO have the control and we're their advisor and champion, then the model works. But we do recognize that there's some growth and scaling there, and we're trying to be very responsive to that. At the end of the day, whatever else we're doing, supporting those teams is our bread and butter. It's our real reason for being in our business. You know, Matthew said earlier that most people can't say that testing and piloting is part of their day job. Well, it is our entire day job, right? So we want to make sure that we take that awesome energy and bring it to the teams and empower them, right? So that's how we're helping with the growth. The second is we do industry engagement, but on a procurement-specific basis. So we support the communications plans for the procurement teams, help them release drafts, have those one-on-one meetings. In the FOSS, Facility Operations Support Service example for FLETC, they did a draft RFP. They released the statement of work, sections L and M, and then had a pre-solicitation site visit conference. So we help support that process as well. Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Very insightful, Polly. Thank you so much. For our next presenter, let's welcome Mr. Casey Kelley, Director of Customer Engagement, Information Technology Category, Federal Acquisition Service, U.S. General Services Administration.
of all, I just want to just get a raise of hands here. How many in the audience are with government currently? Wow, that's awesome. That's a great turnout. So that's it's now just for raising hands for context purposes. Can I see raise hands over here from the district? That's impressive, act to see that kind of turnout for an event like this. We get that much from government turnouts. That's really good. To the question back there, I think that's what's really important for the collaboration, interaction with government industry. So when I was asked if I would come speak on behalf of Kay Ely, Kay is the GSA. She's the assistant commissioner for the GSA information technology category. She couldn't make it today. She asked me if I could come and speak on her behalf. When I saw the agenda, the title of the event, which I liked a lot, Lifting a Curtain, Requirements Development and Federal Acquisition, that caught my eye. Because I think it's, I've been in federal acquisition for 20 years now, and it's so imperative, I think, to define requirement properly to get the best outcome. If you're a federal agency trying to get what you want, if you're a contractor, if you're an industry partner, trying to deliver what the customer is asking for. And it's easier said than done. And so what I wanted to do in that same vein, I wanted to see if, first another raise of hands, who's heard of the Alliant 2 small business acquisitions? I figured it'd be, okay. Let's see a raise of hands. How many of you bid on that within industry? Interesting, okay. And on the government side, within government here, if I get a raise of hands, how many within government have used either directly or you know your organization have used a GSA, the Alliant GWAC or the Alliant Small Business GWAC? Can I get a raise of hands? Good. So what I wanted to do in the brief time I have and take some questions is, and I only got one slide here. Next slide, please. Is I want to lift the curtain and kind of give you some insight to the development of the requirements for Alliant 2 Small Business and how we did it and why we did it this way and why I think it was a really good outcome. But again, you may have a different opinion. I'd like to hear that and get some feedback from all of you in the audience here. So we had the luxury with a 10-year period of performance of the current Alliant and Alliant Small Business QX when we started this process, really back in 2013. So we still had about 5 years, over 5 years left of period of performance on the current Alliant Small Business GWAC. And so we started planning. There's three of us. There's myself, Richard Blake, Paul Martin. We are our senior technologist, one of our senior contracting officers, and lead a program manager for Alliance. And we started brainstorming, started saying, so what do we want to do with this much lead time to really put something of value together, a requirement that we think is going to evolve with time as things have changed since Alliant was awarded 5 years prior to that. So originally we had a lot of resistance from the community, believe it or not. They were questioning when we started, we went public on January 2014. This was that same year, in January 2014, we, in April that year, we executed the 5-year period of performance on Alliant. So we went live on January 2014 with a blog. It's called the Indirect Community website. And the purpose there was to start asking questions to the industry community, to the customer community, fundamental questions that kind of solicit input, feedback, to truly get, information that we would consider as we're shaping this requirement, to truly capture what we think our customers want. And the input and feedback from industry is so important at many times to be able to deliver to the solutions on a vehicle that is this broad in terms of scope. And so we stood up that blog in January 2014. Today, over time, over 8,000 members joined that community from both industry and government. And through the course of 4 or 5 years, 38 different questions we posted on that to try and get information, to get input and feedback, which we strongly considered as we were shaping and structuring this solicitation. It's not showing up there, but what was really effective for us. We stood up an industry, I call it an industry working group within the Alliant 2 Small Business Acquisition, where we would have monthly conference calls that we would leverage the Coalition for Federal Procurement Government. That's one organization of many that we interacted with. ACT-IAC was another organization that we worked with. They had a special SIG that they would invite us to come out and meet with their community members on a regular basis. But we would have monthly calls with industry. We'd have over 1,000 people on these monthly calls, just taking question after question for consideration. And those were tough because oftentimes, you can imagine the range of questions you're going to get with a pool that large from very senior experienced people who know how to do this business and some of the small businesses who doesn't even know what a GWAC is. And so, but we wanted the input and feedback. So we'd have monthly calls with industry. We set up a separate community working group with customers. We went out there and had about 30 different customer agencies who are doing work off the current Alliant Line Small Business GWAC, and we created a team and had monthly meetings with them as well to solicit information, get input, look what's the current scope of the vehicle, what can we do to make improvements on that. So by doing that, any of you who may have followed this for the past 5 years closely watched, there was an evolution of how this requirement started and what it ultimately came to. And what it ultimately came to in the end, by the time the final RFP was issued, you'd have to have been literally living in a cave if you were interested in this acquisition, of not being aware of what that final requirement was going to look like, because we were so transparent, we were so interactive with industry and government to shape it, considering all the information and feedback. Before then, we had over 300 one-on-one meetings in our Kansas City office with our small business GWAC team, and our San Diego office with the Alliant team. Over 300 30-minute one-on-one face-to-face meetings with industry. The same reason again. And I'll give you an example. Some things we had, I left out a big important part of this. The reason why we did a lot of this, not just because we wanted to make the requirements much better, but what we did under this acquisition that we didn't do on the original line contract, we used a completely different source selection methodology that has now become more prominent today. This was a source selection methodology that the OASIS team, anybody heard of OASIS, the OASIS contracts within GSA? So the OASIS professional service contracts, that team developed this very innovative acquisition methodology where they basically had industry self-score themselves, submit an offer based on objective criteria. And so the government then was just making evaluations, validating what was submitted based on the highest technically rated fair and reasonable priced approach. It was very innovative what they did. It wasn't really as accepted, and I'm not even sure how I'll say today it's accepted, but I'm saying it's growing in terms of acceptance because OASIS did it first, the HCAT contract within GSA did it second, the VETS 2 GWAC did it third, we were the fourth one to do it. Since we've done it now, we are getting a lot of requests from customer agencies wanting to use that same methodology at the task order level of existing contracts like Schedule 70. And so they're asking us from a consultant standpoint, how do I do it? Can I do it? What's the recipe? What's the secret sauce? Okay, and there is no secret. It's simple, but it's not. But because of that methodology, we were transforming our federal acquisition community, our 1102 warranted contracting officers within GSA. You can imagine, those of you in government who may have known this already, and industry may or may not know this, you have completely different risk tolerances in terms of contracting officers, how they do with acquisitions. Some are really, strong in business, good, acumen and technical background. Some are, very risk averse. If it's not, I know what I know. I just want to stick to using my vehicle, and I'm just going to do this, what is it? Technically simple. Lowest cost technically acceptable. Which doesn't apply to everything you're doing. So knowing we had that within our arsenal of our 1102 contracting officers that we were working with to develop Alliant 2 small business, we were motivated to leverage the first team that did it, the OASIS team. We asked them for consulting, get feedback from the industry communities who were shaping developing this, changing our mind from the feedback we got. For example, one of the requirements early was You had to have performed doing cost-type contracting at task order level. That was a pass-fail. It wasn't a weighted objective. But from the feedback we got, we changed that. We made it a scoring element because we agreed that was perhaps a little bit too onerous. I'll give you another example. We had leading-edge technologies that were originally, we were considering doing about 25. Show us industry. Your example, you primed work on these 25 different leading-edge technologies to show that you are an innovative performer to support our customers' requirements on this master contract for the next 10 years. Well, the feedback we got was, you know what? That stereotypes from the mid-size, the small businesses who may not have as much in their coffers performance to cover that kind of spectrum, but are so good in that one area that the government needs, cloud, cyber, okay? Maybe they're on a cutting edge, either for artificial intelligence. So the question is, don't you, government, GSA, want to give some acknowledgement, consideration to those companies who may be really strong in a certain leading edge technology, who maybe don't cover the gambit? Great feedback. So we went from 25 down to 10, and we gave companies an opportunity for depth. Give us 3 examples. And if you have 3, you get more points. Again, there's no magic science. We spent a long time, we had the luxury of time, because Align Small Business are both still in place. They're about to expire here next year in 2019. But we took advantage of that time by really, in terms of lifting the curtain, we wanted to develop a strong requirement that matched what the feedback we got from industry, the input and feedback we got from our customers. I think, again, I'm biased because this has been my life for 5-6 years now. I think that the final product was good. One last example I'll give to you before I reference this in these slides I forgot here, maybe open up for questions. This is the first contract vehicle ever, and this is because of our DoD customer working group that we work with. We had representatives from Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, the DoD, Defense Procurement Acquisition Policy, all a part of this team. My goal was I wanted to have DFARS clauses built into the master contract so that we can make it easier for a contracting officer within the DoD community, if they're going to use this non-DoD vehicle, to already have built in some kind of assurances, safety net, streamlined effect to issue a task order at the task order level using this vehicle. That is referencing the DFARS clause we built in. First of its kind, never had that. And we got a lot of, and that doesn't happen unless you're working closely with your customer base like we did. So I'm proud of what we accomplished here, as you hopefully can tell and see. But, and I genuinely mean this, on behalf of many who I represent within GSA and the GY community that spent a lot of time on this, we take everything very seriously. We got, we issued 2 formal draft RFPs, a first complete draft. L&M, AB, all sections, ABC, and we wanted to give you an opportunity so you weren't surprised when it came out to bid. We take seriously all the feedback we got, the questions we got when we issued those draft RFPs, the questions we got when we did a pre-proposal conference before offers were due. We're very serious. We know we know the gambit in terms of some had a lot of experience and some don't, but we're respectful in that vein. No, we're trying to deliver here, which is a final product to support our customers' requirements for complex IT service requirements, or to stay current with innovative technology over a 10-year period, which I think we accomplished. So I don't know where I'm at with time. I think I'm going to just take a pause here, take a sip of water, and see if we have any questions. 2 minutes, I think. All right. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you speak a little bit about why there were 7 separate formal RFIs this year?
Yeah, so the question, so you heard the question. The reason why there were 7 separate RFIs issued, if that was the discretion of the contracting officer, John Cavadias, and was the contracting officer for Line 2, Greg Bird for Line 2 Small Business. Oftentimes, again, it was based on the input and feedback to see what we, to responses to we got from the face-to-face one-on-one meetings, or to some of the questions that we initiated and posted on Interact. I'm blanking out right now to think of a specific example of one of those RFIs, but it was really to be more responsive, not burdensome industry, to be more responsive to industry, because such a diverse input and feedback we got on this vehicle, we were still shaking it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got a couple over here.
So a lot of times we talk about that the government doesn't communicate with industry as much as it should. It looks like you're on the opposite spectrum, kind of referring to your point. Was there ever a sense of burdensome from either industry or the government to review the 7 RFIs, 2 full draft RFPs, et cetera? Or was that not?
Yeah, so true story. I had to buy a case of Guinness to the contracting officer, to persuade the contracting officer originally to join me hand in hand because of the burden that he knew this was going to take. It wasn't the contracting officer today, John Cavadias, who's the contracting software line 2. He absolutely was opposed and was not going to do a second full draft RFP. No way. But the input and feedback that we were getting was so loud that if we don't do that, there was concern and risk that not knowing how long, how many days we're going to keep that RFP out to bid for, if they're going to be prepared about our positioning, not knowing the final outcome, they wanted that warm and fuzzy. Give us, with all these changes you've had since you've issued the draft RFP, you had all these one-on-ones, you had all these RFIs and stuff, give us one more draft RFP. John Cavadias, no way, and I was stuck for a long time, and I did a lot of groveling, and that was a high burden, but I was able to make a compelling case. In hindsight, it helped us. It helped us in what we got, because the feedback we got from the industry community was very powerful and strong. There really were no surprises there. Those who were positioned were ready to bid on that. And in all fairness, I'm just being completely candid out there, it helped us on the back end, because we started getting protests. When we started getting protests, we shared that with GAO and others that, time out and give us a break here. This is what we did, okay? Our part, we can't please everybody, but we were trying as best we can to completely reveal the curtain, give you what this is going to be, so there are no surprises. That doesn't mean you're going to win if you want something, if you want certain thing in there. And there's some that didn't win, but before that decision was made, you knew what was coming out by the interaction we're having. And in my opinion, all the pre-award protests we got, we won them all. And I'm saying that because this helped us to that, and we had a really strong team, our legal team, our contracting team. But that helps a lot when you're this transparent, you're this collaborative. There are no secrets here. We truly are genuinely want to try and help and make this good for our customers first, and for our industry partners who are as important to us, if not more, than our customers. Because we're just broker, we're the middleman. You guys, industry, are the one who deliver a solution. We're as good as you at delivering this. We want to get the best. We can't get the best unless we do some kind of process like this.
So within DHS, we did a training segment on, I'm over here. We did a training on, the GAO decision with Civitech and Line 2, and we had actually John come in with us and Vern Edwards. So we kind of did a scrub on the HTRP model, the decision, kind of what GAO said. So what I wanted your opinion on was we kind of saw this as a good forum for doing multi vehicles and setting up, but maybe not necessarily as a task order, because as GAO said, you kind of lose the ability to do a best value trade-off, and you have to go with the highest technically rated, no matter what the price disparity is or how little it is between the two. So could you talk a little bit more about how GSA sees the task order competition using that approach?
So yeah, great question. I think it depends, and we're not ready there yet to take a position on behalf of GSA. But I will tell you this, we've been asked, but we got to wait until both the Line 2 and Line 2 small business notice to proceed have been executed, and all the protests have been resolved, because that's important information when we've been asked to now provide best practices, templates, recommendations for other agencies who are considering this. Well, we're getting those requests right now. So I agree with you. I'm not going to call the agency out right now, but this one came out recently, and well, little I read or heard, it wasn't as thoughtful through the way they did it. And so you got to be careful here. I know that another request came in to do this under Schedule 7 as a BPA. Can you do that or not? They're asking for, GSA, and now all of a sudden we're authority in this because we've done this, maybe we are, we're not. I'm not saying GSA is going to take that position. We've been asked to develop a template of best practice. That's what we're going to do. We're going to wait and do that until these have been awarded, all the protests resolved, see the reference to Burn Edwards and others, okay, when does it apply from a best practice, lessons learned for consideration for those who may be interested in that. I'll let people above me decide who the authority on that is. I think it's a case-by-case decision, quite frankly. I think that's it, right? Thank you.
Very good discussion, thank you. Our next, this is our final presenter, actually. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Rich Winans, Special Assistant, Internal Revenue Service. Rich.
Good morning, everybody. Just for a second. Sorry. Okay, good morning. Thank you for having me. Thanks again to ACT-IAC for hosting this event and inviting me to participate. I always learn a lot at these events. These are really important forums to have, so very grateful they invited the IRS to attend and participate as well. Also wanted to say, I hope everybody is enjoying their 2017 tax filing season as much as we are at the IRS. It's always a special time of year for us at our agency. There's 55 days left until the tax deadline, but who's counting? So anyways, before I go to my next slide, I just want to tell you a little bit more about what I do in my role. So I kind of wear two hats. So the first hat is I focus on our stakeholder engagement. So any of the external outreach with industry, companies, associations that represent those companies like ACT-IAC, as well as media organizations, anybody that's interested in doing business with the IRS or learning about how to do business with us, what's going on. And then the second hat I wear is a strategic planning and governance hat. So any organizational development items you can think of. We have about 330 employees in our procurement office at the IRS. So I help out with risk management, process improvements, any of the staffing, training, some of the workforce items. So like many of you, wearing multiple hats is, is a good and a bad thing, but it gives me a helpful lens as far as when we're thinking about requirements development at the IRS. A very large agency, complex mission set, a lot of different offices, a lot of different divisions spread out across the country and the world. So when we think about requirements development, I often think about our CX. What is our customer experience at the IRS? And we like to think that we have four main customers at the IRS. Number one is our procurement workforce. So all of our contracting officers, our contract specialists, the other folks that work for our organization. How do we make sure that we recruit and maintain and develop a really highly effective and productive workforce? The second customer is our program officials. So the IRS and Treasury, cores, program managers, folks that actually have the needs, they have the requirements, they have the budgets to actually fulfill a specific legislative mandate or some other objective. Third customer is taxpayers. Of course, every government agency has to support taxpayers in some sense, but we feel that we have a little more direct relationship at the IRS with collecting tax revenue and other items related to that. And then our fourth and final customer are industry partners. We are not appropriated or authorized to perform all the work on our own that we need to do to fulfill our mission. We are required to work with industry, academia, the nonprofit sector to help provide the products and services that we need in order to do our job. So when we're looking at all four of those customers and our CX as a whole, we really want to look at how are there ways to make the market more efficient? How do we make this marketplace more effective? How do we ensure that our industry partners in particular have the information that they need to make important, timely business decisions? Having access to information, as we're all talking about today, is critical for companies to be able to decide whether or not to bid on an opportunity, or even before that, how do they position themselves in the marketplace? How do they assess opportunities? What's the temperature, the appetite for working with the IRS or with a particular agency? And we all know that access to information really does impact competition, it impacts pricing, it impacts innovation or the quality of the proposals or the actual work that is being done at an agency. So next slide, please. First, I just wanted to give a real quick snapshot of the IRS. Sorry if you folks over here can't see that. But just so you kind of get a sense of all of our requirements and our different mission sets. In 2016, during the 2016 filing season, the IRS processed 244 million tax returns. We processed 122 million refunds. So in terms of dollars, we collected $3.3 trillion in gross tax collections. We also issued $426 billion in refunds. So the net tax collection was $2.9 trillion in 2016. Just to put it in perspective, the largest commercial bank in the United States in terms of assets is JP Morgan and Chase Company. In 2016, they had $96 billion in revenue. So the IRS handles over 30 times as much as the largest bank in the United States. So just to put it in perspective, we're kind of part bank, part insurance company, and part law enforcement agency. I don't have any stats up there, but in 2016, we had, that's true. In 2016, our Office of Criminal Investigations had 743 investigations, 613 cases were sentenced, and they had over an 88% conviction or incarceration rate. So we have over 22 federal agents at the IRS. Obviously, historically, you think about Elliott Ness, Al Capone, all that fun stuff with tax evasion. So my point is that the IRS mission is really large, it's really complex, it's confusing at times, and it's hard for us to wrap our hands around from a procurement office standpoint, but also the other customers involved with the procurement process, and particularly for industries. So with all those requirements comes a lot of procurements. In FY17, we had $2.5 billion in contract obligations, and that was awarded through over 12,000 contract actions. So acquisition planning and requirements development is something that we're focused on every day and trying to figure out ways to improve it, enhance it, make it easier, make it faster, make it more effective. Next slide, please. Slide 3. So one of the ways or the tools that we decided to implement to enhance our requirements development was to host an IRS Industry Day. It was the first event that we've hosted like this, and I think about 6 or 7 years. And so one of the main reasons we wanted to host this was we wanted to send a message to industry. We wanted industry to know that we take transparency and requirements development and our partnership with industry very, very seriously. The Commissioner of the IRS came to the event and spoke. We also had 8 different SESs speak from different program offices. And one of the reasons that this event was unique is it wasn't about a specific requirement or one single acquisition. It was a broad-based event about our strategic priorities, what are some of the goals that the agency has, what are some of the initiatives that we're working on now and in the coming months and years. So kind of the 3 main goals were, number 1, to increase transparency about IRS strategic goals and priorities. Number 2, build collaborative partnerships with industry. And then number 3, allow industry to hear directly from IRS leaders about critical programs and initiatives. So like I said, the IRS Commissioner came and spoke, which really helped send that message and reinforce it. And then we also had 8 different senior executives from different divisions of the IRS come and speak. So some examples where we had some folks from our Deputy Commissioner for Services and Enforcement came and spoke about our Future State initiative. We also gave an overview of IRS spend. We also had somebody from our Office of Online Services, so talking about the irs.gov website, some of the specific online applications and tools that taxpayers use. We also had our exec come from our Enterprise Architecture division as well, kind of talking about the current and future state of IT at the IRS. And then we also had our procurement execs, our CPO, Shannon Webbers, and our deputy CPO, Harrison Smith, talk about how to do business with the IRS, and basically just fielded a lot of questions from the audience, which was really great. So the point is that there's nothing like having a real tangible event to reinforce your message of transparency and partnering with industry. This is just one way to do it, but we felt that it was really an effective way to kind of promote what we're doing and try to combat some of the stereotypes or perceptions that we've heard from some folks. I joined the IRS about a year ago, last February, and within my first couple of months, I met with an industry rep who said something that was very striking that stuck with me and still does. She said, in order to do business with the IRS, you have to do business with the IRS. And so I was like, oh no, that's not good. So, and whether that perception is fair or accurate is besides the point. It's perception, and perception is reality for a lot of folks. So we took that to heart, and I really appreciate that she was brave enough to share that with me and some of my counterparts at IRS, because it's really important and valuable in knowing what's a temperature, what's a perception out there about you and your agency. Next slide, 4, please. Sorry, slide 26 on yours. So a little bit more about the IRS Industry Day. Again, we had a keynote address from our IRS commissioner, and we had 8 different execs speak. We had 200 industry attendees come, which was great. So if there's any federal colleagues in the audience that are thinking about hosting an event at your agency, something broad-based about your agency's vision or your goals or priorities, my suggestion to you is to start small. Hosting these events is not easy. I came on board in February. I was the super ambitious new guy. I thought I could pull off an event like this in a couple months. It ended up not happening until July, so I needed about 5 or 6 months, which is completely fine. Also, maybe think about doing a half-day event, maybe finding some particular speakers that have information that you know is very relevant or important or meaningful to industry, as well as finding the right executives that are comfortable speaking, taking some questions, being candid. Sequencing all the events, the logistics, all that stuff does take some time. So one suggestion is just to start small. Don't feel like you have to nail everything on the first try. Quality, not quantity. Another item I wanted to mention is that we had media coverage at the event. I know there's a lot of fear or concern, and rightfully so, about engaging with the media sometimes. But I think proactively trying to build a relationship with not only companies and industry associations, but also media organizations is really important, because they can help share your message. They can help spread the word about what you're doing. Maybe you're aware of or acknowledging certain issues or challenges or perceptions about your agency and how you develop requirements. Working with media organizations to have some interviews and share some stories can be a really helpful way to get your message out there. So that's just another suggestion. As well as working with organizations like ACT-IAC. When we hosted this event, we obviously announced it on FizBizOps and put it out on LinkedIn, but we really leaned on the industry associations, and ACT-IAC is unique in that they have both federal and industry members. But work with them. Sometimes they can help build those bridges, sometimes they can help break down those walls if you're not really sure where to start when you want to host an event. How do you get people to actually attend and participate? So that's just a couple suggestions. Next slide, please. And so a big part of this event was making sure that we got feedback from the industry attendees, so we can get a sense if we're doing well, what areas need improvement, what things we should keep continuing doing in the future, what should we stop. So we had some networking sessions during the event, so we carved out time where people could come and ask questions or give us some of their feedback, which was great. But having a survey after the event was really key, so we could actually get some documented feedback. We were really lucky. So we had about a 38% response rate for the survey, which was great. So out of the 200 attendees, almost 40% of them gave us feedback, which was really helpful. Just wanted to share a couple numbers. So 85% rated the event as excellent or very good, which was fantastic. I'll just read these quotes. Were very, very meaningful, so they tell a story better than me regurgitating them. But one person said, "I really felt like the IRS wants more transparency and wants to understand what new vendors can bring to them." Very helpful after hearing that previous quote about, in order to do business with the IRS, you have to do business with the IRS. So good to hear that feedback. And this next one was even more powerful. Quote, "The fact that you took the time to have this industry day with senior leadership participation without a specific opportunity in mind speaks volume on how you'd like to conduct business in the future." So that was really powerful and reinforced that this event was successful and it was valuable for industry folks. So it is something that we can do again in the future and hopefully have an annual event like this. Next slide, please. So as a result of this feedback, we had some great outcomes and some specific things that we've done or some specific things that we're focused on doing. So the first result was we captured some summary notes and the presentation slides from the actual event, and we publicized them internally and externally. So we had some note takers during the event. I think we consolidated about 20 pages of notes into a 5-page document, and we shared that internally with all of our procurement staff We also spread it throughout the IRS so that cores, program managers, other folks, folks from legal, folks from CFO could hear what was said at the event. We shared it with our Treasury Department counterparts as well. And then we also posted it on FedBizOps, and then we shared it again on LinkedIn in case other federal agencies were curious in hosting a similar event, or if the industry folks that couldn't attend the event wanted to know about what was discussed, how the event looked. So can't emphasize that enough. If you're able to take notes or capture some of the actual slides or information, document it, share it. Share it as much as you can so people actually have something specific to refer to or hold on to. That was really helpful. Another outcome from the event and the feedback that we got was we are implementing an RFI initiative at the IRS. So a lot of the discussion today in this forum is talking about RFIs as a tool. Some are helpful, some are not helpful. And so we're really trying to better leverage the use of RFIs and really getting information out there as early as possible. For example, we had one recent major acquisition where we actually released 2 RFIs a few months apart at different stages, and then issued a draft RFP. So we're trying to get feedback and questions and provide answers at different stages as we're developing the requirement. I think one thing that we have to remind ourselves at the IRS and most other places where I've worked is don't define the requirement before you know what the problem is. I think some of the 3 hardest words to say in the government is, I don't know. Sometimes when we have a sense for here's our need, here's our kind of our challenge or a problem we think it is, but we don't know the specifics and we're not really sure of the solution that will fulfill that or satisfy that need. So be open to using RFIs as a tool, but early on, and making sure that they're not already too prescriptive and specifically about what we need when we're not really quite sure what we need yet. So that's an initiative that we're focused on, and we've had some pretty good feedback on that. I think using the RFIs not only for the technical requirements is helpful, but also to use them for some of the other areas that industry has had questions about. For example, like terms and conditions, maybe the pricing structure, maybe the